I'm going to share one example with you today, which I call ExcelGPT. So if you're similar to me, you're almost overwhelmed by how many different new AI tools are available and out in the market today. Meanwhile, you also have pre-existing models and tools that you've built already today. You're using them in your role, and they're probably a lot of them in Excel. So the prompt that you have is, how can you take advantage of all these capabilities that AI brings to the table without having to either climb the learning curve and go learn how to use a new tool, buy yet another custom SaaS solution, which is incurring monthly subscription costs, or honestly just charging you obscene fees for tokens. And most importantly, you don't want to go rebuilding all of your models from scratch or port all of your data into another system. The things that come to mind for me around how I can use AI in my FP&A role include things like categorizing data, enriching information, improving and automating writing or the qualitative insights, as well as automating workflows or adding intelligence into workflows. I'm going to give you some practical examples of how we do it today. So to solve this, I've built basically I call a Swiss Army knife within Excel. It simply uses Power Query and the OpenAI API, and it can be used for a huge range of purposes. All you have to do is drop your data into the tool, and the model will basically call API and return the results into Excel. That's all there is to it, but it can be used in a lot of creative ways. It'll make AI immediately available to you, and so let's get into it. I'm going to show you how it works, and then I'll give some lessons learned on how to use it, how I'm using it myself, maybe some watch outs as you get into this, and then also you'll get a free copy of this file so you can use it yourself. So let's dig in. Let's go through 3 examples I've got set up. So the first is data categorization. So for this use case, imagine you've got some messy data and you're trying to maybe map your vendor expenses into the right cost category. It could be simply validating things into the right chart of accounts category. So here's the table. You can see I've got a list of prompts, which is really my data. I have a set of agent instructions. These are the instructions you'd like to give to ChatGPT for it to run. And it basically says categorize the data and respond unsure if you're not sure of what the result should be. And I can pick which ChatGPT model I want to run. It's as simple as right-clicking on the table and hitting refresh. And what you'll see in the bottom corner is that in the background, it's running Power Query. It's taking the prompts and the agent instructions, sending them to ChatGPT, and then returning the results. So boom, we've got our data all categorized here. And this is just running on an Excel table. I could paste in 1,000 rows, and it will run through all 1,000 rows and clean them up. Second use case would be enriching your data. So let's say you want to actually add information that's not available through ChatGPT. So in this case, this is a pretty simple one, but imagine you've got a list of vendors and you want to look up their websites or look up a description of the company or look up how many employees they have. And this isn't going to be perfect, but it's highly scalable, and you can choose the model you want, and you can choose a better model if you want one that will be a little bit more accurate. So in this case, what we're doing is just going and retrieving the domain for all these companies. So I'll right click, hit refresh. It's sending the prompt and agent instructions to ChatGPT in the background. And now I've got back the websites for all these companies. Like I said, it's not perfect, but you know what? It's saving a lot of time. The third example would be, I showed there's different models available and we want to test and see which one works. So if you're building a prompt like this, one thing I commonly do is I take a fixed set of prompts and agent instructions and I just update every row in the table to be a different model version. And when I run this time, I can, on the screen within the table, see how different models are answering the same prompt and then pick the one that I like the best. This is kind of a qualitative example. It says, we're explaining how Monte Carlo simulation works to a CFO with 3 sentences or less. And it's from the perspective of being a senior financial analyst leader who wants to explain a complex task clearly and simply. And the reason I chose this is because when you look at something like GPT 3.5, it's more simple. It tends to have more basic thinking behind it and not as clean of a communication style. If you go up to like a 4.0, 4.0 model, it will give you a result that's a little bit more aligned towards executive communication, a little bit more top-down thinking, and tends to put, for example, like the business value of Monte Carlo simulation first and then get into the technical descriptions. But it's up to you. It's your judgment. I just think that when you're building any model, I love to test the different model versions, and that's easy to do. So those are 3 really simple examples of how you can use it in a table. If I go even more complex, I'll give you 2 more examples that are a little bit more sophisticated. So the next one I use for writing, just qualitative comments or descriptions. In this case, it's kind of like writing an article. And I call it a essay writer with committee feedback. And this is actually taking these tables and then daisy chaining them together and running a sequence. This would be something like making a make flow or a Power Automate flow. And here's how it works. So in this case, I enter the title and the keywords that I'd like to have in my article. In this case, it's about zero-based budgeting for driving business growth. The first table takes the prompt and then has some instructions that tell it to write an article. In this case, it's a blog post. So it even includes things like those H2 prompts, a meta description, and other things that blog posts need. That's the first step. The second step is a table, and basically the output of this is then through Power Query linked to be the input for the next one. So in this case, we're imagining a committee and can pretend that the committee is basically the audience you want to speak to. This might be your customers. It could be the people you're going into a meeting with. Just imagine it could be your teammates, and you have a different committee consisting of the teammates you're communicating to. In this case, the agent instructions, I put the persona that I'm talking to in each one. And I give the instructions to provide 5 actionable improvement recommendations to the article to make it more suitable for that audience member. So now basically, I hand the article to my committee. Each of them gives me their feedback and pointers. And I've got a great set of targeted improvements to make. I then do a synthesis step that takes all of the results from the prior step and combines the feedback into a much more actionable list of improvements to make the article better. And then finally, we feed those in as well as the original article and give the instructions to improve the article, and I get an output. So at the end, I can get a before and after post that's gone through a set of committee that's been tuned towards my audience. This is a little bit more sophisticated, but now you can see what I mean by using this as a Swiss Army knife to go build other things. The next example would be more looking at a business workflow. So in this case, imagine we have a purchase requisition process where you have people requesting to spend money within your company, essentially filling in forms to describe what they'd like to purchase, who the vendor is it a good or a service, is it one time or is it recurring, if there's a budget behind it, the category, existing vendors. Typically in your PR process, you'll have a number of different questions set up. And what this does is this tells ChatGPT to act as a initial screening step to the process to review the requests that have come in and do one of 3 things. Either approve the requests directly, either deny them directly, or in the case that there's uncertainty and it's not sure how to make the decision, it'll send it over to humans to then review. And the idea is here, instead of having to review 100 things yourself, the stuff that's an obvious yes or obvious no can be caught. It even gives a description as to if it's denying it or approving it, why it's doing that. And you can basically reduce and focus your efforts on reviewing the things that truly need review, and the low-hanging fruit you can just get rid of. So this is a nice workflow. We're talking about purchase requisitions. You could use it on any other tickets or any other sort of objects that you have to do a lot of review of. Think of it as like making a decision tree. For each item you want to make a decision on, do you know enough about it? Do you know the business unit requesting it, the criticality, if the details are complete or not? It's up to you to engineer in those questions you'd like on the particular items, but then you can really rapidly reduce the amount of work that's required. This example I use is called a spend control tower. It's a concept we used when I worked at McKinsey Company for helping take control over third-party spend, but there's a lot of other places you can use it. So just 5 examples for inspiration. I'm sure you all could go out and build lots of others as well. So like I said, you're going to get a copy of this file. Here is a clean, empty template of this table that's set up for you to run, as well as some instructions on how to do it. Basically, I copy paste this into any model I want to work with, and then just integrate it into my Excel sheets. This is my starter template. I use it myself. The second one is, you might be saying, I don't have a ChatGPT subscription. I don't have OpenAI credits. What do I do? So in this case, I've pre-written an email message you can send to your manager to request both a ChatGPT Plus subscription as well as a monthly budget for Open API credits. And I even cited some research. So there was a study in the Harvard Business School that compared the work of an individual against the work of an individual with AI, as well as a team with or without AI. And what they found was people that were using ChatGPT 4 completed their tasks 25% faster and had 40% higher quality results than those that did not. And what they actually found also was that an individual with AI was as effective as an entire team of humans. So this is going to definitely pay for itself. And then you might be wondering, well, how much does this cost me to run? So I've also built in a API cost estimator, and this explains basically how the pricing works for running the API, and then also is a tool you can use to estimate the cost for any given prompt and system instructions you have. Here I've got the example of categorizing data with a set of system instructions. These are my inputs. The way it works is it translates text into what are called tokens. Basically, every 4 characters roughly is a token, and then you pay per token. So I've got the price sheet over here on the right. It's different per model. You can see 4.5 is much more expensive than 4.0 mini. Also, we don't know what the output's going to be, but you can either scale up if your output's going to be a short, succinct thing, or if it's going to be much longer. You just make a percentage assumption, pick a model, and then you can decide, am I going to run only 1 call? Am I going to run 10,000 calls of this particular table? And it will tell you the tokens that's needed for input and output, and then based off the pricing, tell you what it needs. So in this case, I could run 10,000 categorizations for 71 cents if with these particular prompts. Because it's using the system instructions every single time, getting efficient with those is pretty important. So one trick is take this system instructions, go into ChatGPT and ask it to shorten it for you. It'll deword it for you and reduce the number of tokens that are then being run 10,000 times. Let's see. To make it all run, all you have to do is paste in your API key. I've got an example here, but you'll need to get your own, and I've got instructions on how you can go do that. And then finally, there's just a list of what the different model versions are and some description of each one. So that's the model. It's completely changed. I'd say this tool has completely changed how at least we work within my company. We've gone from hours of work to things that can be done in minutes. It's super cheap, costing pennies on the dollar, and anybody can use it with a key. And there's a portal that you can use for managing expenses around those, tracking expenses, setting budget limits where it won't run the API above a certain amount. There's all sorts of cool cost controls you can put into place on the OpenAI developer portal. Take a look at the downloaded Excel, take a look at the sample prompts, and like I said, I'm sure a smart group like it's watching this video will have all sorts of cool ideas on how you can build it into your models. Thanks for watching.